A dark, cold, and challenging landscape. The harsh environment and difficulty makes this perfect for survival game lovers. And honestly, it's a great opportunity for newcomers to see just how immersive these titles can be. So light your fires, watch for wolves, and brave the long dark. Loading up the game brings you to a surprisingly large array of options. You get your basic display, accessibility, and brightness adjustments, but I'm also fairly pleased with the extra quality options, key bindings, and more to tailor each game mode to how you want. Wintermute is the Long Dark's take on a story mode. Survival is all about thrusting yourself into the unforgiving frozen landscape and doing everything you can to stay alive. And challenges pit you against hard conditions such as constant deadly blizzards, a terrifying bloodthirsty bear hunting you, or even a scavenger hunt for lost records. Performing well in any of these game modes can unlock you many achievements and even feats which can be used for advantages later on. There's a serious amount of replayability here, and there's even more you can experiment with later, as you'll see later in this review. For now, let's take a dive into Wintermute. The story begins with pilot Mackenzie passing the time in his hangar while a storm begins to rage outside. The need for fire triggers the start of a small tutorial to understand the basics of the game's mechanics. Use a source of fire such as matches with fuel and other starting materials to create the symbol of life in the cold north. After a quick rest, he is awoken by a phone call that leads to an old friend, Astrid, to deliver something that is unknown inside her briefcase. Worried about the storm, Mackenzie reluctantly agrees to fly her where she needs to go, but the storm takes a turn for the worse. A geomagnetic disaster strikes, leaving his aircraft disabled and ultimately crashing to the ground. Now, he must survive. The visuals themselves aren't meant to be completely realistic, and it's evident when you notice the near oil-painted art style they went with for characters. The environment and items you come in contact with have a similar feel, but everything is still very obvious as to what they are. I actually like it, and I think it adds to the overall feel pretty well. Now back to the story. The primary goal is to find Astrid and help her with her mission. Along the way, you need to collect material for burning, clothes to fight the elements, and so much more to survive. Your health and status is shown in the lower part of the screen, and these numbers can drop really fast. Make sure to build a fire and use it to boil water and cook food for safe consumption. This is one of my favorite interactions of the game, and it didn't used to be this detailed. You need to manage the time it takes to cook, boil water, and keep the fire going. It's a very natural order of things to keep track of in an actual survival scenario. If your fire goes out, your temperature can drop to unsafe levels, and food can spoil if you hoard it for too long. But after venturing out with this new knowledge, you can come across towns and even other survivors. You learn their stories, they help you along your way, and it's evident that something wrong is happening in this region. Some may not care for the story, but I'm actually very interested in how they weave it together with the survival element. It's a harsh world, and you get familiar with the locations these survivors reside in. The voice acting is done super well, and you never know who you're going to meet next. There are currently 2 episodes to Wintermute, and there's more to come as the studio develops them. But there's still much to do while you wait. Once you enter the survival mode, everything is taken to a whole new level. This massive network of many different locations becomes available, and it's up to you to learn the routes, scavenge for supplies, craft new items for hunting or warmth, and face the many dangers just to survive. There's many achievements based on how well you can survive, then you can make things even more interesting by using feats and custom mode. And I really have to emphasize just how much you can tweak in custom mode. Anything from starting supplies, weather frequency, and even wildlife can be adjusted. I've already spent tens of hours getting about 200 days survived, and that was on a single playthrough going through about half of the locations. It's crazy. And after you become a seasoned survivor, you can take on the challenge mode to really show the wilderness what you're made of. What about audio?
Years. I haven't heard from you since...
I know. And I wouldn't be here if it weren't important.
well...
Some of my favorite moments playing The Long Dark is when there's no music playing and I get immersed into the noises of birds overhead while the wind blows and I step in the snow. Hinterland has really done a great job of keeping the player in the moment and making the sense of sound also very vital to survival. You can hear the wind begin to whip up before a bad storm, or even wolves in the distance as they are stalking you. Well-made sound effects are also very plentiful anytime you interact with objects, craft items, and so much more. For the lover of survival games, this will immerse and challenge you. For those who may want to know what it's all about, you need to jump in to understand. And I mean really set your mind to the environment and survive. It's incredibly satisfying to master it, and there's no doubt you'll get under the $1 per hour mark if you do. Now, the only thing left to do is see how well you fight the elements in the long dark. And that's it for the long dark. Be sure to like this video if it helped you out, and subscribe to see my thoughts on upcoming titles. You can check out my social media by clicking on the links in the description below, and see what other games I have in mind to review even before a video is released.